Dr. Gottlieb, congratulations on your nomination. It's my considered and biased opinion that we have plenty of lawyers in government, so I'm always happy to see a fellow doctor be appointed to something. I think it's important just to sort of reiterate maybe and tell us, your approach in general and motives. Would you ever let drug company profits, or medical device company profits, would you ever let that obscure your duty to safety and efficacy?
Absolutely not, Senator.
And I think that's important because that goes to character. And this is, to me, it's sort of your honor is on the line when you say that. And we can argue back and forth, but only you can tell that, and I think that is your stated opinion, and I accept that. Now, while your primary duty is safety and efficacy, there are sort of market forces that ultimately determine prices of drugs, availability of drugs, whether they're monopolies or not. And I think the FDA gets in the middle of that. And my hope is that, we can get to a point where generics are obviously knowing that safety and efficacy is our primary duty, but that we can maybe get them approved quicker so we can have more competition, that we can not have markets where we only have one generic, that we are doing things to allow more competition, understanding that competition will bring prices down. So I guess what I'd like to hear from you is just in general your approach to how we balance that, patented drugs versus generics, or the things you think we can do better in the generic market. The one you and I have talked about is the EpiPen, where the generic, I think, applied for approval like in 2009, still doesn't have approval. The FDA will say, oh, we're doing a lot better, and we're only doing them in a year and a half now. We used to do them in 25 years or whatever. But, I mean, it's still got to be even better. And I hope you'll see that as something that we can work on, and that you'll give us feedback on how you're going to make that better. I just appreciate your general comments.
This is something, thank you for the question, Senator. This is something I would hope to work on early if I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed into this role. I think when it comes to generics, there's really two problems. The first is just the ordinary generic approval process, where we've seen situations where certain drug markets have fallen to one or two drugs, prices have been raised, and the market isn't self-correcting, because trying to get in an application and get it approved could take up to 4 years. And so you have people who have been able to take advantage of regulatory arbitrage by buying a product that might not face generic competition, even though it's a generic drug, jack up the price, and it takes a long time for other people to come into the market, even though the high price should be attracting competition. I think that's a solvable problem and something I would hope to work on. The other problem, which is more complex, are the generic drugs that we've talked about here today, where the agency doesn't have good standards for demonstrating substantial equivalence, because the drug is a complex formulation, and simply looking at the blood levels of the drug, which is a standard by which we approve generics under Hatch-Waxman, isn't sufficient for demonstrating substantial equivalence. So this might be a drug that acts topically. We're measuring the blood levels. It doesn't approximate the effect. It might be a drug that acts inside the lungs, like a meter-dose inhaler. It might be a drug that acts inside the gut, a pill you swallow that acts inside the gut. So in all these cases, you can't simply look at blood levels as a proxy for how the drug is going to have its therapeutic effect. I think in those cases, we need to develop better scientific principles for doing that. I think there's opportunity to do that within the framework of Hatch-Waxman. I would want to challenge the agency to do that. But this might be an area where we need to come back to Congress and have a broader discussion around what that should look like. But this is a situation where you have drugs that Congress intended for them to be subject to vigorous competition, but we didn't envision it when we passed Hatch-Waxman, because the drugs themselves have gotten more complex.